Good evening and welcome to the CHANA Alumni Zoom event. The fact that you all took the time to join us all to learn and grow in an area of Shidduchim, this in itself will bring you all tremendous brachos forward. And it will help you also in the practical sense to guide you to your bashert. So please sit back, relax, enjoy your questions and answers. It's truly an honor to do this Zoom event with Mrs. Chana Schusterman. Mrs. Schusterman is a very successful Shidduch mentor who has guided many young men and women through the dating process.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you're here. And some of you, I've taught some of you in seminary, so some of you already have gotten my class on how to date. And here we are with questions and answers. So we are in Parsha Shlach. In Parsha Shlach, Hashem now was ready. All the background had taken place. Hashem took the Jews out of Egypt. He prepared them. They prepared for 50 days to receive the Torah. They received the Torah. There were miracles. The people were completely dedicated to Hashem. And then after they received the Torah, there were some mistakes. And one of the biggest mistakes that was made was what we call the sin of the spies. What was this all about? These were people, the leaders of tribes, 12 leaders, that were going to go to Eretz Yisrael, and they asked if they could go and check out the land. Sounds like a date. But 10 out of the 12 of them, other than Yoshua and Caleb, really didn't want to go. So they made it complicated for themselves. They went with an attitude of seeing themselves as very small. They said, we were grasshoppers. We looked like grasshoppers in their eyes. And the Rebbe said about this, they thought that they looked like grasshoppers, so they projected that. And the Kotzker Rebbe says, who asked you to think about how you look in the eyes of other people? You were supposed to go there and say to yourself, not if I'm going to do it, but how I'm going to do it, because this is what the Rebbe wanted. So because they didn't want to do it, and they did it for different reasons, the Rebbe says they were very spiritual, they were a little afraid that if they would come down into the world, that would be too hard for them. So they really didn't want to go. Ultimately, what happened was that Hashem gave them what they wanted, which was another 40 years in the desert with Moshe on a high spiritual plane. But it wasn't until the next generation that the Jews were ready to go into Eretz Yisrael, into the promised land with Yoshua, which they did. Okay, so I want to make this connection. First of all, the first thing is, may we all go to the Holy Land quickly, soon, with Mashiach, and fulfill God's plan, which is what God really wants. Hashem wants this from all of us.
Amen.
I also wanted to make a connection because everyone who is here should assume that you are going to get a good shidduch that is suitable for you. You shouldn't be afraid. You should assume that Hashem is with you and Hashem is making it happen. And don't think about, I don't know if I'm big enough, beautiful enough, wonderful enough, anything enough. Forget about that. Don't make yourself into a grasshopper, and don't worry about how it's going to happen. So Hashem is empowering you, and you can do it. I just want to add that, a little aside from the Devar Torah, that I have a bracha from the Rebbe, a spiritual teacher and counselor, and I do this. How did I get into mentoring people with Shidduchim? That is not what I expected. And the answer is that it took me a long time to find the right Shidduch. A long time. had guidance from the Rebbe, had guidance from Tzaddikim, had guidance from people. And one person who, Rav Lazar Koenig Zatzal, who the Rebbe said he was the Manig of Breslov from Tzfat, whose father had been, I was very close to his father. I was close to him too. He said to me, I came to him once, I was so miserable. Oh gosh, it's not happening, it's taking so long. And he said to me, assume that you're going to get married. Well, I said, but what if I don't? And he said, assume that you're going to get married. So I went back and forth with him until finally he said, assume that you're going to get married. And I said, but what if I don't? He said, you do, but you need to assume you're going to get married. The Rebbe is very strong about this. Trach good if it's sein good. Think good and it will be good. Assume that Hashem has somebody for you and be ready to go forward to the promised land with your husband together.
We will now begin the question and answer session. Mrs. Schusterman, why does it look like there aren't any options to look into, and yet people are getting married? I don't feel like I'm being set up with people who match me, even though others similar to me are being set up with their match.
Okay, so in terms of feeling like there aren't any options, I'll tell you something from my own experience. I kind of thought I would just meet somebody, it would happen. Somebody would suggest somebody, and that was that. Then when I was in Crown Heights for a while, and then I went back to Eretz Yisrael where I was living for some time, I had a yechidus with the Rebbe, and I asked the Rebbe, I said, I need a Shidduch. And the Rebbe's answer to me was, go to Shadchanim, because that's the way it's ordinarily done. Now, Shadchanim, first of all, the Rebbe said, go to Shadchanim. The second thing the Rebbe said, because that's how it's ordinarily done. In other words, the Rebbe had to give me a reason, because the Rebbe knew how much I did not want to do that. So what I did after that was I went to Rabbi Binyamin Klein of blessed memory and his wife Leah, who I knew well, and I asked them to make a list. I didn't know who to go to in Eretz Yisrael. So they made a list for me of people to see. Now, I understood that the Rebbe meant go to Shadchanim, but also the Rebbe meant network, talk to people. Some of the people on that list were Shadchanim, some of the people were people who knew people, some of the people were people who could possibly give me advice, and some people had nothing to do with Shidduchim, but they thought it would be a good idea for me to meet them. So what I did when I went to Eretz Yisrael is I took my little list, and as hard as it was for me, I started to go through one person after another and asked if I could meet them. I went to them personally and met them. The next month, I called them again. Do you remember me? I came to you last month. Do you have any ideas? And some of them met with me and had very good ideas that were actually helpful to me in my process. Some people really didn't get me at all and didn't know what to help me. And after a while, after 2 or 3 calls, when they said, look, I really don't know why I'm on the list even, I took them off the list. Then there was somebody who became a friend of mine. Actually, the truth is, many years later, she made my Shidduch. She was on that original list. But what happened with that list was that I kept calling the same people, and some of them came off the list because they didn't understand me, they didn't know anybody suitable for me, I didn't think it was going to help. Other people came onto the list, people that had helped other friends of mine with Shidduchim. So in other words, I had an ongoing list, and I kept calling them. Now, in terms of, I don't feel like I'm being set up with people who match. We'll talk about that later. But these people that you're calling need to have some kind of an idea of who you are. It's good to say, can I meet you? Do you mind if we have these days a 5-minute Zoom conversation? I would like you to see me. I'd like you to have an idea of who I am. And talk to them a little bit and tell them something about yourselves, because that makes it easier. don't start with, 40 people and then start with that. You never know, that could be it.
The next question, it feels like there's a gap between shadchanim and the girls dating. Like you said, sometimes the shadchanim just don't get you. It feels like I'm just a name or a number. How do we bridge that gap?
Obviously, you have to stay in touch with these shadchanim, because I had the experience too. There were people that I got in contact with and I never heard from them again. They never thought of anybody from me. Okay, they should have come off my list earlier. But you need to keep the connection, even with people who are friends or parents of friends. Remember, I'm looking for Shidduch, keep me in mind. So you need to keep that going. But another thing that's really important is that you have to have a sense of what you're looking for. So it doesn't have to be a complete list, and I find that when I counsel people, some people really don't know what they're looking for. And some people change what they're looking for as they, as we go further. But you have to have some sense of a list of what is important to you. What are the qualities that you want? Do you want somebody who will work? Do you want somebody who's a shliach? Do you want somebody who is kind? Do you want somebody who's a go-getter? Not all these qualities are the same. But if you don't have an idea of what you want, then you just go and say, I would like a shidduch, but she's a nice girl, she looks like a nice girl, no clue what she wants. If you give them an idea, then they say, oh gosh, the boy that was here just the other day sounds a little bit like a match. So you have to do this. Also, you have to give your parents a list. You have to tell them what's important to you. I have met parents, single daughters, who have said to me, I have no idea what they're looking for. Wait a minute, you've been looking for shit for a long time. Well, they don't know and I don't know. That's very unnecessarily making things complicated. Come up with some things. Take 5 things that you would like to have and work with that list and start there and give them an idea. And that will help a lot.
Our next Zoom event is actually going to be with Toby Leader, who's going to help us identify those 5 majors that you're talking about.
Wonderful. And I do that as well. And I do that. What happens often is that people change their list because they're not exactly what they're sure of what they want. But Toby Leader will help you with it. And maybe I'll speak with you later on. But it's a good thing to have an idea of what you're looking for. Otherwise, you have nothing to say to the other person.
And the other single that comes up with a clear list, the shadchan will prefer to work with that person because they have clarity what that person wants, and you get to the wayside. So thank you for that. Okay. Mrs. Schusterman, is it ever okay to say no based on a picture?
Actually, interesting. I was reading some of the Rebbe's letters. The Rebbe was not in favor of looking at pictures altogether. And the Rebbe was not in favor of Chassan and Kala taking pictures together either at the L'chaim. You need to know that. Pictures give a very superficial idea. And what happens a lot of times is that if you see the boy's picture, you're judging him by something very superficial, and this boy might be judging you by something very superficial. Sometimes what happens is that people have a very strong idea of what they want. Somebody that I know well, I helped her with her shidduch. She had a very clear idea of what she wanted. Someone just like the brother, just older than her, because they were very close. Then she went out with someone who was completely different. The boy, her brother, is dark and thick and strong looking. The person that she went out with was very fair and slim. If she would have seen a picture, she would have definitely said no, because this person did not look like what she thought she wanted. But interestingly, they met and they were really right for each other, and they knew it quite early on. And what's very interesting is that he brought out something different in her than what she expected. Also, sometimes when you need to be open to people looking different. What happens if you meet the boy, you see that he's a little bit bald? I go, oh no, I can't go out with somebody who's bald. Guess what? So you'll marry somebody who's not bald. 15 years later, he might be bald too. And you don't like that he has reddish hair? Well, 15 or 20 years from now, he's going to have gray in his beard. So some of these things are things that are very superficial. I think it's better not to look at pictures altogether. Could it happen that you might see something that makes you really not want to go out with them? Could happen, but that's not the Rebbe's way. So I really don't think it's the best idea. I think it's quite superficial.
Thank you. You know, Mrs. Rachel Duchman, who also does coaching, she said that she talks to parents and she recommends that you never show the picture until you've finished the research and you have beautiful characteristics that you can describe the single to your child. And really focus on those things and say, are those important to you? And the very, very, very last thing is you show the picture. Because a picture is 1 second of one person's life. It never captures what that person really can offer in life. Okay. Mrs. Schusterman, what's the right balance between going out with every good and nice guy that comes up and being too picky, not going out at all? It's exhausting to go out with so many guys. Everyone's resume looks the same. Even after research, he sounds nice, no red flags. You never know. So, does that mean we should go out with every nice guy?
Okay, so this is a multifaceted question. So let's see if we could take it in parts. You do not have to go out with every person who comes up. It's fine to choose. It is exhausting to go out with. Why do you have to go out with 40 people? You don't. So it's a good idea to choose, but if you know what is important to you and your parents are doing the research, and what does research mean? Your parents or somebody appropriate is actually checking a resume, speaking to people, asking questions, then not everybody seems the same. It looks from the outside that everybody seems the same, but when you ask questions, they do not. And I did a lot of research for my own children who got married, and I can tell you I found out a lot about a lot by asking questions. And I'm going to mention that to the mothers next week about how to ask the questions. So then you don't see that everybody's the same. If somebody sounds like they could be a real possibility, sounds like a mensch with the qualities you're looking for, then you can meet. And it's a good idea to meet somebody who is possible. Doesn't mean you're going to marry this person, but to see who this person is and then go on with your list and see if they fit. Now, in terms of exhausting, one of the reasons that people get exhausted on by dating, is that they try to share everything on the first date or on the second date. I am not a believer in that. A boy called me a few weeks ago and he said that she seemed like a really nice girl. I asked her, what did you talk about? Oh, we talked about everything. Okay, that's already a red flag for me. And then he said, she answered all my questions and I answered her questions, but maybe she's a little shallow. I said, wait a minute. When she said something, did you ask her more about it? Like, do you like your teaching? I do like my teaching. Oh, that's good. On to the next thing. That's not communication. Communication is to ask more. Oh, really? I'd like to hear more about that. So he said, I don't know how to do that. And I assured him that he did. We spoke about that. And he went out the next time, and he went back to some of the subjects they had discussed, and he asked her more. And the result was that, I had said maybe she thinks you're shallow because you're not asking her anything about anything. They had a beautiful conversation going more deeply. So take the time on the first date. Don't talk about where do you want to live and how many children do you want to have and how many guests do you want to have. Don't talk about those things because that's not a way to get to know somebody. So just have some conversation trying to get to know the person, and then you can go from there. Then you won't be exhausted.
Mrs. Schusterman, what is considered superficial and should not be a deal breaker?
What should be considered superficial and should not be a deal breaker? Okay. Okay, so here you are, you're going to meet. I assume that we're talking about when you're dating. Before dating, there are certain things that you can say, this is superficial and it's not going to bother me. And there's certain things that you could say, no, I don't want to do this. Like, for example, somebody who's a child of shluchim in some other country where they speak a different language, and you might say, I don't feel comfortable to learn another language, or I'd love to go to another country and learn another language. So it could be something that you say, wow, that was a dream. I didn't think I would really do that. And for another person, they could say, that's not really what I'm looking for. That's not superficial. But many things are superficial. They're unimportant. And you need to know that. Sometimes, I'll give you another example. What if somebody, depends, how old you are, but let's say you're 25 and you're going out with somebody, and he was divorced. And you look at that and you say, oh my gosh, how can I marry somebody divorced? And then you look into it, your parents will look into it and say, he really made a mistake, married the wrong person, or there was a real misunderstanding of who the person was. They were married for a short time. It's nobody's fault. Why should that stop you? It shouldn't stop you. So in my opinion, that could be superficial, but you have to decide for yourself which things are good for you and which things are not good for you. So that's something you have to tell when you're looking into the situation. Okay, so now the purpose of dating is to see, who is this person? Does he have the qualities that you need? So you're meeting him, and let's say that you see that you have to watch, how does he do things? How does he behave toward the server? How does he behave toward the person who parks his car? Is he kind? Is he rough? And it depends what you're looking for. So you might see things that just say to you, oh, no, I can't do that, I don't want that. So you have to look at what you see in front of you and what he says. I just have to say that if he tells you something about yourself, about himself, you should listen and pay attention because he's telling you for a reason. So what's going to happen is certain things may bother you. He might have a scar. And then you have to turn it around and say to yourself, and what if it was the other way? What if you were the one with the scar? Would you want that the boy should say, ew, a scar? Or would you want that he should look more deeply at you? And I think that if you see something, you need to look more deeply. You have to also understand that there's a certain amount of discomfort that comes with going out with a boy because you're not used to that. And so there may be a discomfort that just comes from the situation of dating, or might come from sitting in a hotel, or these days it might come from Zoom, but just calm down. Try to see who he is and let the superficial things just go to the wayside. But if something is really disturbing, then perhaps you need to speak to somebody, a Shidduch mentor, or to your parents or to another person who's going to guide you to see what's really important and what's not.
Thank you. Wow. I really like that point. If someone has a scar, Baruch Hashem, I don't, to feel sorry or say, imagine if the tables were turned. I never thought of it that way. Thank you.
Yeah, there's actually a story that I could tell you. It's a story from somebody who was in Eretz Yisrael. It's a long time ago. And a bacher heard a girl screaming, and an Arab was trying to attack her, and he ran over and he saved her. And the Arab had a knife, and he got a big scar on his face. Later on, he went out with people, and the scar made them really nervous. It's very interesting that they couldn't overcome it. That's something you have to ask yourself. So he went to a gadol in Eretz Yisrael, and that person said to him, listen, the next time you go out with somebody, just sit down and tell her how you got the scar. So it won't be the elephant in the room. Just say, you got the scar because you helped a girl that was being attacked, and that's what happened. And the girl looked at him and said, when did this happen? Where did this happen? And it was her that he saved.
Right.
An amazing Hashgacha Pratis story. So she said, I didn't know who to thank. I didn't know where to find this person. Obviously, the scar for her was like a badge of his manliness to protect her. So you never know. But I think some of these things really are unimportant and superficial. So just drop it.
Thank you. That's incredible. If you go out with a guy and everything seems to be good, you get along, you share the same values, and just have an overall enjoyable time with each other, but there isn't much feelings. Is that a straight out reason to stop dating if those feelings are not there?
Okay, that's a really amazing question, and that's a question that comes up a lot when people consult with me. It's not uncommon. So it's important to use our minds to see, does he have the good qualities I need? Look at him, see who he is. He seems very kind. I like the way he treats the server. He comes and he's friendly. And I wanted somebody who is X, Y, and Z, and he seems to have these good qualities. That's the most important thing. The Rebbe really says that is the most important thing. One thing that stops people from feeling is their expectations. Their expectations of what they are going to feel. Some people think that, there's going to be, wow, oh gosh, I can't believe it, I found him, he's so amazing. Okay, and some people are like that, but not everybody is like that. And this is another subject, this is actually one of the biggest subjects that comes up in counseling. How do you know for yourself? How do you know what works for you? And you have to find your own way of knowing. That's really, really important. But these expectations are very problematic because you think something is supposed to happen that's going to let you know, and that doesn't happen. There was one girl that I counseled. She knew it was right for her, but she was waiting for that, firecrackers, and it didn't help. It didn't happen. So her mother asked her to speak to me, and what wound up happening was I spent an hour figuring out if she already knew, and she did know. And then I had to convince her that she had already figured out that she knew, because she was so, her expectations of finding out in a different way were very strong with her. Then she realized that she really did know. So sometimes it's something very quiet that you just know. Now, the expression that is used by the Rebbe is Hamshachas Halev. Hamshachas Halev means that you're drawn, that you feel drawn to the person, you like being with the person, you feel good with the person. So this is something that, again, it's not loud. It's just, I like to be with you. I just feel comfortable with this person. So that's something that you have to find on the inside. Another thing that makes another helpful point on this is that very often people are looking too closely at their list. You know, does he have this? Does he have this? Does he have this? You know, and then what happens is that everything is like a completely super logical experience. And that makes it very hard to know also. There was somebody who called me some time ago, and she said she really likes him. I mean, she likes him, but she doesn't really feel anything for him. He has all the qualities. In her mind, she knows it's right. And I asked her what they do on the dates, and she says she talks to him, she tries to find out more about him. And I asked her, did you find out enough? She said yes. And I asked her, if he would turn out to be the right person, would that be okay with you? And she said, yeah, it would. So I told her the next couple of dates, don't ask him questions. Don't try to find out anything. Just go out and have a good time. At the end of the next date, she knew he was right for her. Because once she took the pressure off herself to keep finding out more, to keep coming to that exciting moment where she knew, one, just take it easy, just go out. And then she knew that really she liked him and she had feelings, and that was it. And they're married with children.
Mrs. Schusterman, how important is it for young daters to, or experienced daters to have a Shidduch coach, a Shidduch mentor, to help them when they come to that crucial deciding point, and how many times they try to decide on their own and they may be giving up their bashert without realizing it because they didn't take the effort to call someone that has expertise. People call their friends or mashpiyim, but what is it like to actually have a proper Shidduch mentor that can help hold your hand and help you listen to that quiet sound you were talking about?
I think it's really important. For one thing, I don't believe in talking to a lot of people while you're dating. I think that's really not a good idea. If you do that, you have your 3 roommates, you have your parents, you have your mashpia, you have your 3 roommates, you have your 5 brothers and their 5 wives, and your 3 sisters and their 3 husbands, and you have 15 people who expect to hear what happened on the date. That is not helpful. Very confusing. I think it is a good idea to talk to your parents, to speak with your mashpia if she has a good marriage. You should have a mashpia who has a good marriage, especially after you're married. And somebody who has a little experience with dating, sometimes people go out once and they have no experience with dating. They don't know what to say. And maybe one older sister if she has experience in a good marriage. Not a lot of people. I think it's amazingly helpful to have someone who is neutral. Somebody called me yesterday, she really liked this person. And the more she told me, red flag, red flag, red flag, everything seemed like that was really, she needed somebody who would be objective, And again, I'm not a shadchan, because I feel sometimes like the shadchan feels that her job is to bring the couple together. I don't feel that way. I feel that my job is to help the person know what is right for her or for him. So I think having somebody objective on board is very, very helpful.
Thank you. And Mrs. Schusterman, we're going to go up one question because I see I skipped number 6.
Okay.
At the end of the day, is it really bashert whom I will marry, or do I really have choices? What has to be there to say yes and no if he is the right one?
Okay. That's a very good question. usually people don't know who is b'sher for them. There are occasions where people just say, this person is so right for me. And even then, it's good to slow down and go through the process. Could happen. But usually, you go through the process, and the person that you marry, Rabbi Friedman once said, he said, if you're married, you should assume that's your b'sher. It was a wonderful, wonderful answer. It also takes off the pressure, because then you find you do have choice. There is free choice. So you find somebody who is really right for you. Now, what has to be there to say yes and know if he's the real one? The qualities, first of all, it has to be somebody you trust. It has to be somebody that you feel has the good qualities that you need. For example, it could be that you would like to work, and you would like a husband who also works, but he's involved with family, because that's what you would like. If that's on your list, you would like that to be there. Some people would like to be home with the children, and you would like it if he would take care of the parnasa as much as he can. So you need to see that that's there, if possible. But these are things that it just has to fit, what you need. It's also really important, to look into the future and see what kind of a life would you like to have. And if you could see him in your future, and you think that together you would raise children and make the kind of home that you would like to have, then I think that's a yes. That's a yes.
Mazel tov, that's a good one. Okay. How do you know that you are ready for the next stage of life, to get married to this person or to anyone?
It's important. Hashem wants people to get married. It's wonderful to be married. And I think for most people, you don't want to stay unmarried for your whole life. But you have to make a commitment that you are going to get married. In other words, if you say, I want to get married, then that commitment will help you. Some people feel that as soon as they're 19, they're ready to get married, go for it. Other people think, they need a year of working out of town or a year of something else that would be important to them. You could take that year, but it shouldn't go on and on and on and on, because you can't assume that at the moment that you decide that you want to get married, that somebody suitable is going to come up. It doesn't go like that sometimes. So sooner is better. And you also have to know that you can't do all your growing and all your life experience before you get married, because that's what life is about. And many, many people feel that their real growing happens when they're married, and that many wonderful life experiences happen together with their husbands. To say, I would like to travel, so I'm not going to get married. That doesn't make any sense. Tell the person that you're dating that you would like to travel, and ask him how he feels about that. And don't assume that you're going to miss out. But these are things that you don't have to wait for. In terms of going out, the other question would be, how are you going to know if it's right for you? So I think we discussed that already. Once you have made the commitment that you want to get married, and this person seems good for you, then it's a yes.
Let's listen.
It's a yes. Somebody once was going out with a person. It was obvious to me that it was the right person for her, because it's just as clear as could be. But he wanted to marry her. And she called me and she said, but how do I know there isn't somebody else who's better out there?
It's CHANA.
And I said to
Okay,
her,
rename it. No, it's fine.
better?
It came up to you when you used it. I'm happy to have
Can everyone please
Second.
unmute
Sorry.
themselves so we don't hear you over Mr. Schusterman?
1 second. Ask to unmute. Okay. Mr. Schusterman, please unmute yourself. Mrs. Schusterman, please unmute. Unmute. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I said to her, somebody better? I mean, it was very, very clear that she liked him and that she thought he was good for her and all this. And I said to her, somebody better? You're not going to get somebody better. You're going to get somebody different. But you should just know that this different person will not have the same qualities that he has. And she looked at me and said, but I like his qualities. And I was like, boom. Then she knew she didn't want somebody different with different qualities. She wanted him with his qualities. That's another thing I think is really important to mention, is that you marry a whole person. And you don't marry somebody saying, oh, you know, I like her, but she's really cute. I like her. I wish she was a little taller. And she talks a lot. Well, I like that. I don't like this, and I like that. And he said, well, I could marry her. Anyway, you would not like that. You need to marry somebody that you're able to say, I like him. And I feel like he has good qualities. And I could make a life with him. In other words, you're marrying a whole person. Once you feel that you see him as a whole person and that you could marry him and it could be a good life and that you could go forward together, that's it. And then you're ready.
Awesome. How does a young girl post-seminary figure out if she's ready to start dating?
I think you should assume you're ready to start dating. What are you waiting for? Gonna wait for what? To become more mature? I spoke to two sisters. One of them was 19. She said she wanted to get married right away because she knew she wouldn't grow until she did. And the other one said she felt like she had a couple of things to work out. So she did, and then she got married. But there's no reason to wait. Could she have worked out those things with her husband? I would think so. But it's hashgacha pratis. But I don't think it's worthwhile to wait. I think it's good to just say, let's go. Again, because you can't tell when somebody suitable is going to come up. Also, one more thing. What sometimes happens is that somebody is suggested just when you thought you're going to give it another year. And somebody very special is suggested, and your parents check into that person and say, wow, he seems really wonderful, and he seems really wonderful for you. And you say to your parents, you know, but I was planning to wait for another year. I had this conversation with a mother recently, and I said to her, you need to tell your daughter, if I were the mother of this boy, I would not tell him to wait for a year for a girl who's a maybe. I would just go forward to the next person on the list. So I would encourage her that if you think this is somebody very suitable, she should just go out. And then what happens sometimes is you say, I'm ready, he's good.
Love that. And another question actually off the chart, the other side of the spectrum, there are girls that are like 28, 29, 30, and it's still not happening. And they are totally they want to date, and they have such positive outlooks. What, you know, if you keep doing the same thing, you get the same results. What do you suggest for girls that really want to get married and it's just not happening for them?
Okay, so I went through that myself. I won't talk about how old I was when I got married. But I did go through that. One thing that I think is really important is simcha. To have a positive attitude. To trust in Hashem. And like Rav Lazar said to me, assume that you are going to get married. Keep networking. If people on your list are not helping you, take some people off and put some new people on. My mashpia at that time suggested to me that I should do some chesed work, because she said the time will come when you're going to be raising children, God willing, and maybe you need to prepare for that right now, because it develops you being a giver. So sometimes there are families that need some help. They have a number of children, and they, especially now, they don't know how to take care of all those children. It's like, oh, so much going on. And you could say, I would be happy to, whatever it is, do a Zoom class with your child, take your child out for a walk in the park. Things that could be done that keep you giving and keep you young. And, you know, this is one of my very important points that I think about for everything. Do not think of yourself as old. Doesn't matter what age you are. Do not give up on yourself. Do not think of yourself as old. You have to start new again and again. Don't describe yourself in some kind of way to yourself, I'm getting so old. Don't do that to yourself. You are who you are. It's Yrat Hashem, the right person will meet her and go, oh my gosh, where's she been all this time? Here she is. Oh, finally. So you need to just keep your joy and keep your patience and keep moving forward. It's really, really important. Don't give up under any circumstances. So, but the joy, I feel like the simcha is really, really, really important. You know, the person who made my shidduch said to the person that she made my shidduch with, she said, she's such a positive person. That made her feel very happy to introduce me to somebody, because be a positive person. Work on it. I need to tell you, it's something we're all working on. And in this time particularly, we need to work on being positive. Simcha is a choice. Trust in Hashem. Hashem is the one who makes the shidduch. Don't say, where is Hashem? Hashem is here. Hashem is here, Hashem is there. Hashem is truly everywhere. The thing is, when it will be the right one, it will be the right one, but keep looking, keep networking, keep happy, keep giving, keep starting new.
Thank you for that. Wow, that was very positive and encouraging. Very often, we hear that the first year of marriage is very challenging. It's not like the secular world where they learn to live and communicate with each other before marriage. What advice would you give to engaged couples to prepare and even prevent first-year challenges to build the strongest foundation?
Really a good question. A lot of times, people are mistaken in what they think a marriage is. You know, the book Eternal Joy, the series from the Rebbe, by the way, you can get that online, free, read the whole book, it's very helpful. I don't know, sometimes people think that they're marrying their girlfriend. And the way that they speak to their girlfriend is, oh, I can't believe you're wearing that thing, that's ridiculous. Come on, that looks terrible. Maybe you talk to your girlfriend like that. I don't, but that's not, you can't talk to your husband like that. That's not going to work. A lot of what I would say is that the way that you date is very much related to marriage. In other words, when you go out, you need to be interested in seeing who this person is. You need to be considerate. You need to dress nicely. You need to be respectful. All of that is necessary in marriage. You know, when you sit at the table at the hotel or however that goes, and you ask him, well, tell me about your day, how was it? Or you told me last time that you like whatever it is, tell me more about that. You have to be interested not only in what he says, but in who he is. When your husband comes home, don't start kvetching, but be interested in who he is. Hi, sit down. How was your day? It's a really good thing. You know, a lot of women complain that their husbands don't talk too much. One reason that that happens is because she does all the talking. He comes home and she says, I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, I couldn't get the stove to turn on. It was really such a problem. It was really awful. I didn't know what to do. I tried to call you, it didn't work. And he's like, we just came home from work. We just came home from learning. He came from an office and he's exhausted. He wants his wife to be happy. That's really big. He wants his wife to be happy. So when he comes in and she says, hi, and then they sit down and she says, how was your day? And lets him talk first. Then she's going to find that he wants to talk to her. He has a lot to say. Then he's going to get around to how was your day? Saying my day was really good, but I couldn't get the stove to work. I didn't know what to do. So, maybe you could help me with this. But not in a kvetchy way, not in a childy way, because your husband really wants you to be happy. And if you can't talk in a way, if you talk in a way that always makes him feel like you're not happy, he feels like he's not doing a good job, and that will make him unhappy. People don't realize that, you do need to dress nicely. Okay, so if you have babies, and they need baths, don't give those baths exactly when you know your husband's going to come home. Why does he have to see you like over the bathtub, doing that, kneeling on the floor? Give them baths earlier, and then could look more dignified. And if you would think, what I need to look dignified for your husband, for your own dignity, because you are a daughter of Hashem, and you want to look beautiful, and you want your husband to treat you with respect and tznius, so you treat him with respect and tznius, then you can have a beautiful marriage. It's very important to what worked in your dating, continue it, because that's how you relate. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. And once again, I'd say anyone who needs dating advice, either during dating, before dating, or even once you're married. Mrs. Schusterman is a very successful Shidduch mentor who has guided many young women and men through the dating process. I will WhatsApp you Mrs. Schusterman's contact info so you can call her. And I'd like to open the floor to questions. And the way we do that is you can unmute or raise your hand. I'm not sure how we should do this. And we're going to be able to give you, Mrs. Schusterman will give you a 1-minute answer so we can get through a few questions, if that's possible. Anyone would like to ask any questions? Okay, don't all ask at once. Anyone? I know there's some questions brewing in people's heads. Okay, E would like to say something.
So, based on the last question.
Speak up louder, please. Okay.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Based on the last question that was asked, like for an engaged couple before marriage, do you think that it's a good idea to like go as a couple to like a dating coach, a marriage coach, to be able to set those things before your marriage so that you don't have that confusion and you don't have to backtrack while you're married and doing the wrong things already.
Well, my opinion about going to a dating coach after you're engaged, or to a therapist, my answer to that would be rarely. It would be a good idea to go to a dating coach before you start going out to ask about marriage and getting ready. I think it's important to learn about marriage before, and these things should be discussed with the person that you're dating and the person that you say yes to. Well, why would you need a counselor? I think it is important to have that each of you should have a mashpia who has a good marriage, and that it's also fine to have a rav or somebody that you talk to in case something comes up that you need to discuss. But only in the case of, I'm thinking about a couple that, you know, they're very suited to each other, but they did not have good communication skills, and they had a hard time understanding each other. Then during their dating, they spoke to somebody together, I've had that, where they tried to learn how to communicate with each other because they needed it. They could see that they were two unique people who were interesting for each other, but they needed a little help. But I don't believe in it as something regular. By the time you get engaged, you should feel that you are having some communication and that you know what marriage is to some degree, and that you have somebody you could talk to. That's my opinion.
What if someone has an older sibling? Should they start dating if they are of marriageable age?
So it's an ideal that the oldest one should get married earlier, but that doesn't necessarily happen. You'll see about this in the book Eternal Joy. If somebody, if somebody feels that she's ready to go out, and there are candidates for her, and her older sister is not ready, it's fine for her to go out. When what the Rebbe says to do is that when they get engaged, maybe they should wait just a bit longer, and maybe they should make the wedding a little longer. In other words, if they would make the wedding in 6 weeks, that they would make it in 10 weeks. Not if that's going to have to you have to use your common sense and talk to somebody. I mean, if you could get married before Pesach, it doesn't mean wait till after Shavuos. It doesn't mean put another 2 months on it. But there are things to do. You also are supposed to ask for permission from your older sibling and get permission. And that is a segula for them. But I think don't wait too long. Don't wait too long. So sometimes it's something you need to discuss with a parent or a mashpia. And if you feel it's not going as it should, then maybe your parents should also discuss it with a rav if they're having a hard time with that. Because, like I said, in our family, it's happened not once and not twice and not 3 times. It happened a number of times.
Thank you. Is there any segula for shidduchim that the Rebbe said specifically that you're aware of?
I don't know if there are segulas that the Rebbe said. I really don't. There are segulas that people do.
Please, can you share what you recommend?
I don't have something that the Rebbe specifically recommended. To me, the Rebbe kept telling me to do things in a down-to-earth way. You know, to look for the shidduch in a down-to-earth way. In other words, the Rebbe segulas was something that I was good at, and I did segulas. But that's not what the Rebbe was telling me. The Rebbe was telling me, you know, get back to the job. You know, go to Shadchanim, keep doing it so that it really works in the world. I think that's more the Rebbe's way of doing it.
Mrs. Perl, can I interject for a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
As I think it says in Eternal Joy that the Rebbe says that a person is supposed to look for a shidduch as if they are looking for a lost diamond, something very precious. So you have to do it with the enthusiasm, with that in mind.
Or if you lost your cell phone. We don't often lose our
True-
diamond, but
True
imagine
story.
would we do anything until we find our cell phone? That's how we should be searching for our Shidduch.
Right.
Thank you, Esty,
But
for
I
that.
think it's really important, enthusiasm and being positive, and when you go to the shadchan or you go to somebody, look nice, don't be sad, trust in Hashem, be happy, and tell her I'm looking for, and be an enthusiastic person. That makes her want to help you. And remember that the shadchan is also a person. So be nice to her and kind to her, and she should feel happy that she met you.
That's beautiful. I've met girls like that they give me the lift. It's incredible. What should someone do if they get nervous at a date to the point where they just can't show their true self?
Stop thinking about yourself. Focus on him. Try to see who he is. He's probably just as nervous as you are. And he feels like he has to make this date work. He might be completely as nervous as you are. Be kind to him. Be interested in him. This is really true. You know, I'm an educator, so I teach regularly. I teach a Zoom class. And I was teaching another one, and not these, but regular classes. And I've been teaching for many, many, many years, and I can tell you that if you focus on yourself, it's very hard to speak and to teach. You have to think about the person that you're speaking to. And if there's something you would like to know, you have to, or something you would like to share, you need to think about that thing. So let's say that you would like to share what everybody knows about you, that you're a really good artist. If you're thinking, am I really a good artist? How am I going to say I'm a good artist? Oh my gosh, am I really a good artist? Then you're not going to say anything. But if you are interested in him and he just asked you, what do you like to do? Think about him. He just shared something with you. You'd like to share something with him. This is not scary to say. Everybody who knows you, then just look at him and share with him. Well, I actually like to do art. What kind of art? And then forget about yourself. That's what it really is. Self-consciousness is focusing on yourself. Of course, there could be a nervous moment. You get into the car, take a breath, and say, hello. Why are you saying hello? Because you're thinking about him. You wouldn't like it if he picked you up and he didn't say anything, just sat there like that and didn't say anything. You would expect him to make a little effort. Hello. So think about him, not about yourself.
Thank you. What about, I did everything that was said and not one bacher said yes to me to even go out. And I'm in touch with shadchanim. What else can I do?
It's a good question. And I feel for you because it's not pleasant. Sometimes it could be that the right person just hasn't come yet. And Hashem is saving you the difficulty of going out with 10 people. So he's just going to send you that right one. A question would be, are you going out with people that, well, you're not going out with them, but do you feel that what you're looking for is suitable to you? So that's a good question. In other words, maybe you need to take out your list and look at what you're really looking for. And I find this very often. I just have helped somebody this week. It turned out that what she thought she was looking for was not what she was looking for. So now her mother texted me afterwards and she said she looks happy, but she has not looked in a long time. But sometimes what you're looking for is not what you really want or need, even though you think so. So they think, but she doesn't fit to me. And they don't really fit to you either. So you have to reevaluate. You have to reevaluate. I think if I, in such a situation, I think it is good to talk to, to a dating professional, because they would work with you on what are you looking for. I think that's a good idea. But I just say that it's really important to stay positive and to keep reevaluating what you're doing. And Mr. Hashem, the right person will come.
Amen. Do you find that sometimes people are looking for two opposites of the coin in one person? And that could be part of the problem?
Sometimes that's true. There are people who want very gentle type A people. Type A people are people that are out there, they make it happen, like the business and this is that, and they want them to be very gentle. Just a second. What's a very gentle type A person? If they're type A, they come home and say, okay, what's for supper? Like, what's happening? Because that's how they do things. And when they're working, they're not gentle because they're busy getting things done. So what you're looking for doesn't work. You have to know what is essential and what would be nice. And what I have found sometimes is that redefining the words are good. Somebody told me that she wanted a type A, she said that. A gentle type A. And then I said, maybe you don't need a type A. Maybe you just need somebody who gets things done. That reframe helped a lot, because she could have a gentle person who gets things done, but she cannot have a gentle type A. So that did help. So I think you have to sometimes reframe and redefine what it is that you're really looking for. I always say, alles in einem, it's nicht über KAYN. No one person has every single quality. It does not exist. And you don't either have every single quality. So looking for perfection sometimes is also not a good thing. You're looking for a real person. You're a real person also.
Like that. Is one date enough to decide not to go on another date, or is it necessary to always give it that second chance?
Unless there is a really, really, really good reason, like the person really scares you and drives 150 miles an hour on the way to the hotel, and you're like, the whole time. If he scares you like that, don't go out with him again. But it's considered menschlich to go out twice. Something insulting about not going out twice. But the first time I would say, just try to get to know the person. Don't come to quick decisions. Don't look for a quick decision. Because if you sit with your little list and go, okay, he's like this, I don't know. No, that's not what I'm looking for anyway. Then you never saw him. You're just staring at your list. So I would say on the first day, don't go out with your list at all. Just think, let me see who he is. And on the second day also, let's see who he is. And then you'll see if there's a reason to continue going out for one more date. But I think it is definitely better to go out twice. Unless the person scares you.
Is it okay to daven for a single and they don't know that you're davening for them? And I know we are encouraged to, each one of us, to daven for a single. So Hashem will answer both.
Well, I have a list of people that I daven for. Generally, I daven for them daily or almost daily, because I think they need a Shidduch. I don't think I need to tell them. Sometimes they know that I daven for them. Other people don't know it. But I feel like they need the help. And if a ruchniistic Tehillim boost is going to make a difference, so it's a good thing to do. So I think it's just fine to daven for a friend. Absolutely.
Okay. How do you go about being yourself, staying true to who you are, when certain people you go out with seem to either bring out some of your qualities or actually dampen certain qualities? So either for the positive or the negative, how do you stay true to yourself?
That is a really good question. There's a lot in that question. It's a question of why you're so easily affected by other people, because you are who you are. So as I told you, don't think about yourself, but just see who the other person is very good. If you find that you're a joyful person and the person has a bitterness or the person has an anger, you don't have to keep going out with that person. If you feel that the person makes you hyper because they're so hyper, maybe you're not on the same wavelength. You should feel that you are yourself when you go out with somebody. You should feel you are more yourself, that it brings out who you really are. But I think that that's a question that has to do with a lot of things in life, about just be who you are in general. Don't try to impress somebody. Don't try to impress the person you're going out with. Be interested in the person you're going out with. It's not the same thing, because you don't want to give a false picture of who you are, and you don't want them to have a false picture of who you are either. So just be who you are. You know, mensch, dress nicely, respectful, interested, but you has to be you.
Someone asked about pictures. So where's the balance? Because we are in a visual culture and everyone attaches a picture, 2 pictures to their profile. So what's a good balance, a healthy balance about the pictures?
Well, one thing could be to find out about the person first before you see the picture. Because then you're going to say, wow, he has so many good qualities. Okay, he doesn't exactly look like what I thought he would look like, but he has such good qualities. Otherwise, you look at him and say, oh, I don't want to go out with him, without finding out that he has the good qualities. But I have to tell you another thing that's really important. A lot of you are on Facebook. I had a mother call me maybe a year ago. Somebody had come up for her son, and I knew the girl, and I knew the family. And she said to me, I think the girl has a sneeze problem. I don't think she has a sneeze problem. I don't know where you're getting your information from. Well, after a certain point in the conversation, she told me she looked on her Facebook, and she saw pictures of her walking barefoot on the beach, no stockings. Okay, fine. So if you walk on the beach with no stockings, I have no comments on that. It's not a problem as far as I'm concerned. It's the beach. Put your stockings back on, whatever it is. But why would you put on your Facebook a picture that would give somebody a question about how you look? You have to be careful. And it's also more complicated because people send pictures of their friends, not just of themselves. So you don't have so much control, except you need to think that some mother out there might be looking at your pictures. And if you're going to say, well, if she's going to be like that, then don't do that, because there's nothing else wrong with the girl. You have to think about that, the impression that you make. And with the boy, you also have to think about, he's making an impression, maybe he's on the beach playing ball. I don't know if that's really him. Try to look at his face. Look at who he is. Look more deeply into who he is. I'm not usually in favor of pictures because, as I said, some of my children and other people who married people, not what they thought, not what they thought they would look like. So I really feel you have to give it a chance. So pictures, leave the pictures till the end, and then it's okay. I'll use it as a confirmation, not as the way to decide. This is also not only for shidduchim, but for jobs, for people getting an impression of you. You also have to think a little bit into the future. How do you want your future to be? Who do you want to be? Are these pictures that you want your 7-year-old son or daughter to see? then in the future, 9 years later, they look at that picture and say, "Ma, is that you? Why were you dressed like that?" You need to think a little bit. And that's part of our being the children of the king, the daughters of the king and the Hasidim of the Rebbe. So this is something that's worth thinking about right now. I also think that it's important to think about how you want your life to be in the future. And for some people, it is a good idea to up-level. If you feel like, you know, you would like to dress a little bit nicer and not wear shmatas, so start now. And if you think that whatever it is that you think will be good for you and a little more in the direction that you want to go to, then start with that right now. They saw somebody they liked, and he's so cute, etc., and they started dating, but they got somebody to fix them up. I had actually one young man who called me and said, "That's what I did, and I don't like the way it's going. I want to do it straight. If we're right for each other, good. Would you act as the shadchan?" They are happily married because it made him feel so good that he straightened it out. Also, I know that this sounds strange, but sometimes your parents know something that you don't realize yourself. What they see could really help you. See, I think it's really good to include them in the process. And if any of you have things that you would like the parents to know, you could send them to Mrs. Perl, because I'm speaking to the mothers next week. And maybe I can tell the mothers some things that you would like to know, would like them to know. But I think that you have to be able to speak to them honestly. And I think that it will help to keep them involved in the picture. Don't just get started by yourself. If they don't know what to do, tell them to be on next week, or sometimes I do sessions for parents as well.